welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Micaiah Young, and I have a very special guest with me today, Brother Justin Day, and very excited to be talking with him. And I didn't share this beforehand when I was talking to you, but I actually, and I was not even thinking about the podcast today. It was not even in my mind. I went to go get lunch, and I was making a decision between Chick-fil-A and Panda Express, and I was like going to go eat Chick-fil-A, and I'm like, the line's kind of busy, and so I went to Panda. So I know that must let you down, but I don't know that you'd be making money from the one over here, but I know that was kind of a letdown. So hopefully you're not discouraged starting off here in the podcast with
No,
me
not
sharing.
not at all. I'll let you slide. Man can
Okay.
one chicken alone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I don't know if you've ever heard of another chicken place called Raising Cane's
Yeah,
before. I don't know.
absolutely.
So that's, to me, that's the place that's kind of like rising up around here. But Chick-fil-A, like Chick-fil-A, that's still God's chicken. So you can't get past Chick-fil-A. But I'm honored to have you here with me today.
I
Just
appreciate
just
that.
taking your time. You're the owner of a company, Chick-fil-A company. I know you might get into talking about this, but you're looking at starting a second Chick-fil-A, and so you have a lot of things going on. You even said that you had a crazy schedule today. So I'm honored that you're on here and that you would take the time to do that. What I figured we could start off with today is maybe hearing about your faith journey, just how you came to Christ. And maybe we can just kind of go from there if that works with you.
Okay. So I was sitting in church Sunday morning, this past Sunday morning, and it was really kind of funny. It was Kevin, our pastor, who happens to be my son's father-in-law. Um, and so we're First Baptist Church, Villa. Kevin's an amazing person, and he is all about reaching people. And
Mhm.
but one of the things that was being said is that some people have these amazing stories of how they came to Christ and all. I forget who he was talking about, but he said, I just I think the statement was, she was they were talking to the lady, and she was in church 9 months before she was born. uh, you know didn't we was talking about Billy Graham's wife, I think is who he was referencing. And
Hmm.
but and I don't feel like I have one of those big stories. I didn't My parents divorced when I was 6. My mother moved us back to Central Florida area. Both my parents were originally from Florida, and my dad went to the University of Florida and went to Emory Dental School. So we were in the Atlanta area. But when they divorced, my mom moved us back to Florida, and didn't go to church there. And then when I was 16, I moved in with my dad up in Roswell, and we went to attended. Mount Pisgah United Methodist Church there. And, I went through, I did, confirmation classes in the Methodist Church, and through high school. And then went off to college, I really wasn't, active in church. When Christy and I got married back in 25 years ago, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Amen.
she was going to a Methodist church over in Hiram, and so we decided that's where we'd make our church home. And it's Hiram United Methodist, and we went there. Um, I had accepted Christ, as a teenager, um, and then rebaptized in the Methodist Church in Hiram when we got married. And then we were there for, I guess, 5 or 6 years before we got this. I was the operator. My first Chick-fil-A was at Colony Square in Midtown Atlanta,
Hmm.
and so we were out there all that time. And then when I got the opportunity out here in Villa, we wanted to find a church here in Villa, and because that's where we were going to be living life at that point. We were going to be raising our kids, and so we ended up going to First Baptist Villa, which is where my parents went to church.
Hmm.
So we joined there, and then I actually was, so the Methodist sprinkle, the Baptist dunk. And so I got dunked in. 2007. Short when we joined the church out there, because and so I really don't have any big story. I definitely believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. He went
Amen.
to the cross for my sins, and I think and I think you just have to, it's just kind of, I just know.
Yes, sir.
Um, and so, I really don't have any special story about it. And a lot of people have some amazing stories, and mine's kind of like, it's just, it's just there.
Well, it's an amazing thing to me. Well, number one, that Jesus would save us and that He would have a relationship with us, and I know that to me that's a big thing. Your story, because it's led to you making an impact in all the other areas, and leading to your kids being learning about the faith, and you helping other people, even in owning a Chick-fil-A, it's led to a big thing. So it's impacted a big thing, even though it might be a small story about, I heard Tim Hawkins, he made a joke one time about how, some people have crazy stories. You're like, I was a drug addict, I was this, I was that. And he's he just made a joke about how some Christians are like, man, I wish I was on crack.
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten off of drug, but it is crazy that God can take people from so many different areas of life and use them in just fantastic ways, no matter what you come from. So it's just amazing to hear how God reached you, and that He is your Lord and Savior. That's a big blessing. So you got saved. You came. So did you come to Villa Rica specifically to start a Chick-fil-A store, or how did you even get into thinking about Chick-fil-A, working at Chick-fil-A? How did any of that even start, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So I went to the University of Georgia. Um, I dropped out. My father and I had some disagreements. He didn't think I had any clue what I wanted to do, and he was. I mean, there was some definite wisdom on his part, and he basically told me that he wasn't going to continue paying for school until I figured some things out.
Hmm.
Uh, I stayed in Athens for a couple more years, living, having a good time. I was working, worked multiple jobs a lot of the time. Uh, where let's see, I managed a Subway, I managed a Golden Pantry, which is a convenience store chain out of Athens. I sold
Hmm.
furniture for a little while. I cooked full service at Rafferty's. I ended up um, worked in the Kroger deli for a while. So a lot of food stuff. I love the restaurant business. I've always loved to cook, and
Hmm.
I love the restaurant business. I had actually thought about becoming a chef, and kind of veered away from that because the life of a chef isn't necessarily what I wanted from a family standpoint. It's just
Yeah.
not terribly conducive to a family. Ended up as a manager over at a Hardee's over in Athens, and it was in a not a great area of town. Um, and in a conversation with my dad one day, we were talking, and he says, if you like that business, why not do it with the best? And Steve Williams is was ultimately became my Chick-fil-A operator. Had been a patient of my father's, lived in the same neighborhood as my dad up in Roswell, and he says, "Why don't you go talk to Steve?" So I went and talked to Steve. I was actually the first person that Steve ever hired in a management capacity.
Hmm.
Everybody else, he'd always promoted from within his store, and went to work for Steve with the goal. He said, come work for me. I will, help teach you the business and try to, get you an opportunity with Chick Fil A. So went to work for Steve. When I first started working for him, I started with him, and I think it was June of '95. I was driving my little, what was I think a Ford Escort from Athens to Roswell each day. My air conditioner did not work. You can imagine that was not much fun in Georgia in the summertime. Um, and then so went to work for Steve as one of his managers. Eventually, I got an apartment in Roswell. That actually didn't last very long because I was making, I think, $9 an hour, and I could pay my bills, but I had no extra money. And so
Mm.
my dad happened to have a little guest cottage out at his farm, and I called my father up and said, "Hey, what would you think about me moving into the guest house?" And so I did that. So then I was driving from Temple to Roswell every day, uh, but did that working for Steve for about a total of 7 years. But
Mhm.
my goal from the get go was that I wanted to become a Chick-fil-A operator. As soon
Mm.
as I started with Chick-fil-A, that's what I wanted. Uh, got an opportunity to go up to Columbus, Ohio, and to help an operator in his first month in a new mall store in Columbus.
Mm.
Uh, was up there for 3 or 4 weeks, and then came back with Steve, and then I actually got a phone call. So when I got a phone call telling me they wanted me to go back to that mall in Ohio, the operator was leaving the company, and they wanted me to go up and take it over as the temporary operator, I think is what they called it. So working for Chick Fil A at that point.
Mm.
Uh, Went up there and he was losing I don't know, it was like $13,000 a month. It was an old mall that they built a food court onto, and the mall, it was never going to be a really successful store. But went up there to take it over, was there for about 4.5 months. We got it to where we were only losing a little bit of money. I mean, literally a tenth of what he was losing. So we had that opportunity. And in the meanwhile, I had on January 1st of that year, I had met Christy. And so we were dating when I moved up to Ohio, and I flew Christy up there to propose,
Mm.
and she and my stepmom planned our wedding while I was in Columbus, Ohio. And
Wow.
so I left Columbus to come home and get married. Um, And so I left Columbus. I left on Mother's Day to go up there, and then it was October 1st was when I came home to get married. We got married on October 16th, and that was 25 years ago. Just had our 25th anniversary, uh,
Mm.
and I decided to go back to work for Steve for a year because when we got married, Christy is a couple years older than I am, and she had gotten married young, her first marriage, and so when I got married, I had a 10-year-old stepson and a 8-year-old stepdaughter. So I went from being single and nobody to care for, or to worry about, but myself, to having a wife and two children, you know,
Wow.
with the power of one ring. And so went back to work for Steve for about a year so that I could take time to get acclimated to a new family situation. And I think that was a really wise decision to do that. And
Mm.
then I got a phone call from Randy Smith with Chick fil A. He was a business consultant, and they wanted me to go down to Colony Square in Midtown Atlanta and take over a store that was the operator was leaving. It had a reputation as the worst store in Atlanta at the time. So I got there September 1st of 2001, right before September 11th occurred. Uh,
Mm.
and basically walked in. Randy said, "You are walking into a hornet's nest." And I
Mm.
was up for the challenge. I said, "Great." I said, "We will make it happen."
Mm.
Um, got in there, got the store turned around. The first 3 months we were there, we didn't even turn a profit because I was just spending so much money trying to get things the way they should be.
Yeah.
That fourth month, Randy looked at me, says, "You probably need to show a profit this month." And I said, "Okay." And
Mm.
so, we did, and went through the interview process to actually become the operator of the store. Uh, and we were awarded the store, and I say we, myself and Christy, because she works in the business some with me,
Mm.
and she does a lot of stuff for me, and especially back then she was doing a lot more. So I
Right.
definitely could not have done it without her help. uh, February 1st of 2002, so 8 months later, 6 months later, was when I actually became the operator of that store. So I was officially a Chick-fil-A operator. uh,
Mm.
that was a trying time. Christy, the month I became the operator, I had not cut a profit check because before I was working for Chick-fil-A, so Chick-fil-A was paying me. Now it was sink or swim time, and I was the operator. If we were going to make a living, it was on my back. Well, Christy got laid off from her job that month.
Wow.
That put a lot of stress on me because, again, I didn't know if I was going to make any money out of this store or not.
Yeah.
I had it calculated down to the dollar of if, and I think it was, I want to say it was like $300 was what I'd have to cut my profit check for in order for our bills to get paid.
Wow.
And so that was a very stressful month. A lot of prayer that month. Um, and of course, it's February in downtown Atlanta, so it's the slowest month of the year.
Mm.
That first profit check we cut was, I think it was like $1,300 or $1,100, but 300 was the number that it had to be. And,
Yeah.
and at that point, when that was such a blessing and a relief that at that point
Mm.
I knew, okay, we've got this. When
Wow.
I took that store, it was known that if anything was ever going to happen in Villa Rica, Georgia, I wanted to be considered for it.
Mm.
My dad lived in Temple and in Villa Rica Temple. He lived right across from the middle school off Tunnel Lake Road. But they lived there. My stepmom grew up in Villa Rica. Her dad was a doctor in town 100 years ago, um, and so I wanted to be considered for it. When Randy Smith, when I went through the interview process to get Colony Square, he he told me, he looked me in the eye and he says, "You realize that this may be your only opportunity with Chick-fil-A." And I told him, I said, absolutely. I said,
Mm.
I but I know myself and I know how hard I was willing to work and that the hard work will pay off and I will
Mm.
ultimately get to where I want to be. Um, so after 5 years at Colony Square, we had very successfully, we doubled the business in that store in 5 years.
That's awesome.
The Chick-fil-A, the first store I actually applied for to get out of downtown was actually the store on Thornton Road and
Mm.
right off I-20. And that store came down to between myself and Laura Lee Nix, who was at Arbor Place Mall at the time. She was the operator that opened that mall, and I knew her. She was patient. Her family were patients of my dad's. I knew Laura Lee, and so that store came down to between the two of us when we applied and who was going to get it. Obviously, she got it because I'm not there. And when it was really kind of a funny conversation when I found out that she got it and she found out she got it, and my first phone call was to her, and it was a really funny conversation. The first a couple minutes of the conversation because neither one knew if the other one knew or what, so it was just kind of funny. But my whole the whole thing was to call and congratulate her on it. And at that point, obviously there's a little bit of a disappointment there, but
Yeah.
I came out. I told Christy, I said, you know what? It's not God's plan. I said,
Mm.
God's going to put me where He wants me. And I guess it was maybe 6 months later or so was the opportunity for Villa Rica came about. And
Mm.
I look back now and I'm so very thankful that that's the way it worked out, right? That because again, God was going to put me where He wanted me,
Right.
and so Villa Rica is really where I needed to be. It was the right thing. I think that Laura Lee has accomplished fantastic things at Thornton Road. And it's a different environment there, and I don't know that I would have had the ability to do what she's done there.
Mm.
And I don't know that she would have had the ability to do what I've been able to do in Villa Rica. Chick-fil-A's an amazing company. And so anyway, so in 2007 we opened this store in Villa Rica. And again have just been blessed beyond measure. We are very beloved in the community. We try to do a lot in the community. We support our churches, our schools. Uh, we I tell my guys what we do is not complicated. Okay. You take care of your people, you take care of your customer, the rest works itself out.
Mm.
The rest, all the other stuff, it takes intentionality,
Right.
things done. But if you don't lose sight of, we're here to take care of people and
Mm.
each other and the customer. And if we do that, everything else is gravy. So,
Hmm.
so anyway, so that's kind of my Chick-fil-A story. Like I said, I've been, so I've now come February, it'll be 23 years I've been a Chick-fil-A operator. I
Wow.
do have an opportunity coming up for a second location. We're going to be putting, Chick-fil-A is going to be putting a location at Mirror Lake. And so I'm excited and anxious about that. Definitely prayerful about it. And
Right.
I look at it as I feel like we've done what we can do to show Chick-fil-A that yes, myself and my team, we're deserving of that additional opportunity, that
Right.
we're prepared for it. Ultimately, it's the same thing. If it's meant to be, if God wants me to have that second store, we're going to get that second store. And if we don't, then that's wasn't God's plan.
Right.
We go from there.
I love that. So your mindset, it seems to me that you're just like, I trust whatever happens, happens, and I'm going to be okay with that. And you've already made up your mind with that. What how have you developed a strong mindset with, because I've seen, normally if you go to a job, you work it, but then you leave the job there, you go home. But with you being the owner, you got people calling you when you leave. You could think about it because, like you said, you can be anxious about things. Hey, are we going to make it with this month? These employees are doing this, and you're always probably thinking about it because that's your baby. That's something that you started. That's something you want to run well. So how did you get a mindset that it's like overcoming the obstacles that you have to deal with? Because you have to deal with people quitting and you having to replace. You have to deal with all these things that you have to deal with being a business owner. Like, how did you develop a I guess just a rock solid mindset to overcome and learning to trust God through all that? If you don't mind me asking, just out of genuine curiosity.
Yeah. So my mom always says I was born a little old man. Um, and so I was the kid. So the first time I ever cut somebody's grass for money, I know was before sixth grade because we moved and I went to sixth grade at a different school. But I was outside with a little 22-inch Murray lawnmower, um, mowing our grass. And a guy that lived in the neighborhood stopped and said, "Hey, you want to make some money?" Yes, sir. And that was the beginning. So all through high school, uh, I was the yard guy. When we moved to a little neighborhood. It was about 42 homes, and by the time I left that neighborhood, I had 7 yards that I was their guy all the time. I did the common areas for the HOA, and just about every house in that neighborhood I had done work for at one point or another. Uh,
Hmm.
I always wanted to make money. I always wanted to, have money in my pocket because I wanted to have some things, and that was the way to get it. When I moved in with my dad, I did the same thing. I got yards that I did up in it, and his was a 400 home neighborhood up in North
Wow.
Fulton, and but I had 7 yards that I did, and so I've always wanted to, I've always wanted to have nice things and um, to be able to to have the freedom to do things that I want to do. And so
Hmm.
I've never once been afraid to work hard.
Hmm.
Working hard with Chick-fil-A, I think it's that the hard work pays off and is rewarded and recognized, and I think that's really important.
Hmm.
These days, now I'm 23 years in, um, as far as being an operator, and they say, work smarter, not harder. um there are still days that it's hard work, but really for the
Hmm.
most part, it's been the change of mindset of develop my team and develop my leaders and
Hmm.
continue to grow them and give them opportunities to grow, to learn, to make mistakes. And so I've got probably the strongest leadership team right now that I've ever had in my career.
Hmm.
They got in a mindset years ago, and it was a theme at operator seminar several years ago of being a clock builder, not a time teller.
Hmm.
And that was what I've really, over the last several years, preach to my guys and to my leadership team. I say guys, my top people are females, but anyway,
Yeah.
um, but is that hey, you know, figure out. Don't just call me and tell me there's a problem, right? You
Mm,
can call me and say, hey, there was a hey, this happened, but this is what we did to resolve it. And because I always tell them, I say, you're going to make mistake. If you make the wrong decision, we'll discuss it and we'll figure out, okay, if something like this happens again, then this is how we probably could handle it better than we did. So trusting my team to make those decisions and and trusting them to make mistakes, because we're
mm,
all human. We're going to make mistakes. Um, and I think that's been one of the biggest things in my leadership journey and growth, is allowing them to do it and not have to
mm.
depend on me. And right now, my store, I mean, they're amazing people. They are absolutely fantastic people. They own it. And I don't know, I don't remember if Jessica Davis, she was Jessica McNair. I don't know if she was there when you were there, but she's actually become a Chick-fil-A operator, and
Mm,
she's one of those stories I love to tell, because she was a young lady who, not a great family life. Um, I don't think father really wasn't in the picture. She was working 40 hours a week in high school. Um, and a lot of people in our area, high school students, if they want money in their pocket, if they want cars and stuff like that, it's, moms and dads don't have the money to do that. They're
right.
out there working and getting it. And this young lady, she came to work for me. She became one of my team leaders. She put herself through college. She has a passion for children
Mm,
and wanted to help children. And she's a young lady. I've watched her over the years. Everybody comes to those forks in the road, and she always seems to choose the right path. She knew what she wanted for herself, and she was willing to do what it took. She put herself
mm,
through school. She ended up going to work for DFAX, worked for DFAX for 2 years, and came and talked to me one day, and we were talking of that, that DFAX, it just from a it was mentally exhausting. It was very hard for her to continue to do that. Uh,
right.
and I talked to her, I said, you could become a Chick-fil-A operator. I said, and you could have a huge impact in your community as a Chick-fil-A operator.
Mm,
So she came back to work for me. Worked for me, I think, for another year or so, and then we actually sent her out to Rockmart to Zach Thomas, the operator out there, and kind of I said, I told her, I said, we'll send you to finishing school. And Zach was, at the time, just far ahead of me. I feel like, on leadership development, and was just excellent at what he did. He was a former Army Ranger, and but
mm,
great guy. So she went to work for Zach, and I think had a lot of growth there. And then she ended up going into the leadership development program that Chick-fil-A has, and it's a 2 year program where she traveled the country, helping with grand openings or operator transitions, all different kinds of situations, good, bad,
yeah.
different. Um, and but went through that program for 2 years and went through the interview process and actually got selected as an operator, and is now operating she's now 2 years into a brand new freestander in Corpus Christi, Texas. And
Wow.
her husband is from Texas originally, so they wanted to be back in Texas. So it was just really neat, and those are the things I love, right? Is when I see the people who may have come to me as a 15-year-old, and I see them, uh, several years later, and I love losing people when they're going on to do their passion,
Mm,
when they're going on to, and some people I don't look at team members I don't hire people with the expectation they're going to be with me for 10 years. Especially when it's high school kids,
yeah.
I want them to help teach them responsibility, help them grow. And for a lot of these kids, it's their first job, and I want
Mm,
to see that, and then I want to see them go off and succeed in life.
yeah.
That's what it's all about. I've got a young lady right now with me that is about to graduate in the fall, and has decided she thinks she wants to become a Chick-fil-A operator.
Hmm.
And I'm super stoked in helping her on that journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so has your that's just so cool to hear stories like that. So, has your vision when you so it's did it start off as in like, okay, I just love restaurant environment, but then it led into wanting to make an impact in people's lives, like when they're working for you, and then them go out to make more impact, or was it like we wanted to make an impact on our community, or was it both, or like where was your mindset when you were going into Chick-fil-A, like this is how I can make the impact, and just kind of how it's transitioned in there a little bit?
So honestly, when it came to I wanted to become a Chick-fil-A operator, eh, bottom line, it was about making money.
Mm,
I wanted a career where I knew I could make a very good living. And this was it ultimately became that. I think the culture and what Chick-fil-A is at its core, what Truett Cathy started, I think that's one of the just the amazing benefits of what we can do, as a Chick-fil-A operator. We have the opportunity, it affords us the opportunity to have that positive influence in our community on the people that come to work for us, on our customers. So that's just the added blessing. It's just
mm.
amazing that we've had that opportunity to do that. I love doing that. My favorite thing in the store is, and you see me these days. I stand around and I talk to people. I'm out in the dining room chit chatting with customers, or chatting with my team. Just having that interaction with them. Today I got to spend probably 45 minutes to an hour with one of my leaders, Utoria, because she was putting together gift bags for our Christmas party. And so I said, well, I didn't have anything going on, so I was back there helping her make gift bags. But it wasn't about helping her do her job. It was about, this is an opportunity for me to just talk with her for a while, right? So we just had
Mm.
good conversation while we were doing this. I enjoy it. I enjoy hanging out with the team. I did something, and you can speak to this. So did you work in the front of the house or in the back of the house when you were
I
there?
worked in the back.
Okay, so we had an order one, I don't know, one Friday night football game this year, and it was about a $2,600 order that was going out at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But then we had 350 Chick-fil-A sandwiches that were being picked up at 5:30. And so I was talking with my kitchen leaders about, hey, what's your plan for tonight? Because it's Friday night, so it's obviously going to be really, really busy. Said, what's your plan as far as getting, preparing this and making sure everything's um, ready on time? And he told me they were going to probably start about 4:30. And he says, he joked with me. He says you ought to bread these. And I just kind of laughed, and I decided. So it was about an hour or two before they were going to start, and I had time. But I'd already decided I was going to hang out with them for a while they were doing that evening. So when he said that, I got to thinking. I said, you know what? I went home and changed my shirt and changed my shoes, and I went back to the store, and I waited till about 3 minutes before they were going to start breading. And I walked over and I put on a yellow apron and a hairnet, and I said, I got this. And he looked at me like, I was like, really? I was like, I got this. So,
That's awesome.
so I jumped in there, and so I said, okay, I said, I'm doing it. And so I started breading the chicken for this order, and then of course, obviously all the other chicken that needs, that they need cooked just to run the restaurant.
Yeah.
It was so funny. My guys got the biggest kick out of that. They literally had bets going on how long this was going to take. And so we got the whole order ready at right at an hour. But that was not about showing my team that, hey, the old man still got it. It was about the camaraderie and
Mm,
how much they enjoyed that. That meant the world to me. They
mm,
they laughed, and I mean they're still, they're still commenting on it, right? And and I knew I could do, and I did tell them afterward. I said, "Y'all realize it's probably been 20 years since I've done that, especially at that capacity." I said, "Guys, it's been 20 years easily since I've done that." But that was, again, it was not about showing them that, hey, I can do what you do. It was about getting to spend the time with them and how much fun they had
Hmm.
watching me jump in there right by them and get it done. So that's what I enjoy about my job these days, is the getting to hang out with my team. I'll still go expedite outside the drive-through and and cut up with the team, but it's all about, if I'm actually working in a position, it's because I want to be there, and it's an
Right.
opportunity for me to connect with my team.
I love that. Even when I worked there, so I only worked there from it was probably 8 months,
Hmm.
if I had to remember, 8 to 12 months, something like that. But even being there the short time that I was, every time you came back there, it always lit up the room. And I'm not trying
Yeah.
to give you the big hair or nothing like, but you just had an attractive personality where it's like I would love to talk to that guy. I would love to be around that guy. And you just always had that personality of wanting to be around people because you as the owner, you could have easily said, "Y'all do y'all's thing. I'm gonna go on a beach somewhere. I'm gonna go do this.
Right.
I'm gonna do that." But the fact that you chose to be around the people that were working there, have you always been a people person? Like, is it something you just always enjoyed making those relationships and things like that, or is that something you had to work to develop?
No, I'm a people person. I love to talk to people. My wife absolutely just rolls her eyes at me sometimes. I'll get in a conversation with somebody, and there's something happened recently. It was too funny. Oh, so okay, this is funny. So our doorbell rings the other night, and so I go answer the door, and this lady says, "Does Christy Day live here?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "That's my wife." And she said, "Well, these packages are hers." And it was a box from Amazon that apparently they found on the side of the road, and
Hmm,
so they were kind enough to pick it up and bring it to us. And so she introduced herself, and her husband came up to the door, and he introduced himself. And so anyway, so this ended up being like a 5-minute conversation. But the funny thing is, in that 5-minute conversation, I found out that Charity, who's one of my leaders, she was there when you were there.
yes,
That
sir.
Charity was coming to their house the next day for Thanksgiving. That they lived right up the road. You know that basically, we found out about each other in this little 5-minute conversation. All these little connections, and
Hmm.
I walked back inside, and I was telling my wife, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" And but she knows me, and she knows I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to enjoy talking to people, and finding out about them and telling them about us. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just neat. But so no, I'm definitely always been a people person. But she just because my wife's Christy's the sweetest lady you'll ever meet, but she's very quiet.
Hmm.
And but she just looks at me sometimes. She's like, you will talk to the wall. I'm like, well, if the wall wants to have a conversation, I will. So yeah, it's just fun. It really is. I like to get to know people, and I like to, just cut up with people and have a good time.
I love that. And even the fact that you talking to me today, it's not something you had to do. It's something that you're like, I would love to do that. I would love to be involved in that. And that's really encouraging to me. And I know it made my day, just the fact that you would take the time to even speak with me about these things, just because I've always wanted to get to know you more, and even talk with you more, just because I just enjoy being around you every time I have been around you. Even though it's been a long time since we talked. But
Yeah.
um, is there any advice? Because I know we want to wrap this up here because I don't want to keep you. But is there any other advice that you would give as far as it could be financially related, it could be life related? Is there any other advice that you would leave anybody that maybe it's even looking
Yeah.
back or just
I,
anything
I
off the
would.
top of your head?
I'm sorry. Well, sorry, you froze there for a second. I didn't hear
Oh
the.
no, you're good. I was just going to say if you happen to have any advice at all that you think would be helpful to people that just maybe is just in your head that you just want to share with anybody before we kind of wrap up here today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to tell you thank you for reaching out. I think that's amazing. It's very humbling to that you did, and I'm so happy to hear you're doing well, and this sounds like this what you're doing. It seems like it's very big passion for you. Um, I think as far as words of advice, man, it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, and I think figure out what you like to do and figure out how to make a living doing it. And you don't go to work, right? You get to go to work. um, you're gonna you think about when you want to what you want to do as a career. It has to be something you're passionate about and something you enjoy. You don't want to spend your life being miserable in a job. I don't want people working for me who are miserable in their jobs. And I've had to have conversations with people before where I've straight told them, if this doesn't make you happy, you owe it to yourself to find something that does. From a financial standpoint, one thing I wish is that I had started saving for retirement sooner.
Hmm.
Um, now, we've worked very hard. Christy and I, we have zero debt. We did Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University through our church
Hmm.
several years ago, or gosh, 15 years ago. And I actually have one of my younger brothers handles all his internet marketing, works for him up in south of Nashville.
Hmm.
And but save. Um, because Dave says that what can you do when you don't owe anybody money? Anything you want. And
Hmm.
so I would say the sooner you start saving, the better. I've we've since we've got 401k plans now set up at the store. And I encourage my people to get in there and at least do the matching part, right? Because it's
Yeah.
and so if you have an opportunity to get into a plan like that through work, you definitely want to do it. But save money because you want to set yourself up for when you decide, hey, I'm done working. I'm I didn't start as heavily as soon as I wanted to. So that's one regret, is that I wish I had done it a lot sooner.
Hmm.
Um, I'm doing my best to make up for it now. And because when I retire, I'm not going to retire and sit around. I want to retire to something. I want to be able to, for Christy and myself, to travel. We've been very blessed. We've been able to take some amazing trips over the last 25 years, and I look forward to doing a lot more of that in the future.
Hmm.
But yeah, figure out how to make money doing something you love. That's It's just that simple. Life doesn't have to be complicated. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I love that you said that, and that's what I felt like God wanted me to do, is being ministry, because it's, obviously I'm not in it. I would do it. I would did it before I was even making money doing it. Look,
Right.
I absolutely love doing it. And because I love doing it without even doing, just love serving the Lord in ministry, God opened a door for that to happen. And so that was just already it just feels like God, like you said earlier, God knows, like, he has a plan for you,
Hmm.
and God wants you to have a joyful life. He wants you to have a life more abundantly. And so it's not like just about all prosperity and you're going to have millions and millions of dollars or anything like that, but God doesn't want you to be miserable going through your life. And so if there's something throughout your life that he puts a desire in your heart that you enjoy doing and that you can serve people, I mean, why not jump in it and do it? And so I love your story. It just absolutely encouraged me and made my day, just being able to hear everything that you shared. And it's just very inspiring, and it's just very, I don't know, it's very humbling as well that you would take the time to do that. And thank you so much for all the words of wisdom and everything that you've shared. And thank you so much for everybody that tuned in as well. As you watch this, hopefully this was an encouragement to you. Hopefully this was a blessing to you. And if you would, share it with somebody else. and because I know for a fact it'll be inspiring and be an encouragement to others as well. So thank you so much for watching. Tune in with us as we jump on here again next time, and hope you have a great day.